Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and this is the More Insights and Strategy podcast. I know, such a unique name, but I am so excited to have a special guest on today's show, and that is Nakul Duggal from Qualcomm, who's the Senior Vice President and General Manager, the big guy for automotive at Qualcomm. Nakul, welcome to the show.
Hi, Pat. How are you? Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. I'm sure a lot of our audience has seen you on stage at places like Qualcomm, at CES or Mobile World Congress, or maybe even Automotive Show. But can you talk a little bit about what you do? I know you just got a promotion. Congratulations. What do you do at Qualcomm?
So I've been at Qualcomm since '95. I've been here for a long time, and I've been in the automotive business for the last 10 years or so. I've just taken over the business unit very recently. And, Qualcomm has, as you know, been in communications and compute for a long time. And I've been part of the automotive business since 2011. So, really great place to be, a lot going on in the auto industry. And I think we've been part of this journey and a lot of fun times ahead.
Yeah, for certain. And, I know everybody knows Qualcomm related to mobile technology. An unnamed smartphone provider launched a big phone this week with a lot of Qualcomm technology in it. But a lot of people don't know that Qualcomm has a huge automotive business. So maybe we can start. What does Qualcomm offer to the automotive industry?
Yeah. So, we started getting involved with the auto industry almost 20 years ago when we determined that cars were going to have wireless connectivity, and it made sense to start to influence the automakers and their supply chain, the tier ones, with the same types of technology introductions, the complexity and the challenges that typically come with bringing what has typically been consumer technology into the auto industry. So we got exposed to the complexity quite a couple of decades ago now. We are now, I think, on our 9th generation of modems that are going into vehicles. We are starting to do 5G starting 2021. So the industry's come a long way. We started off with CDMA, did 3G, LTE, and now onto 5G. We have also, along the way, introduced in the wireless space technologies like cellular V2X, which we introduced about 4 years ago. That is very specific to the auto industry, so vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure communications. We got into infotainment about 5 years ago. We started working with Audi back in 2016, and that was our introduction into bringing application processors into the auto industry, which was obviously something that was new to the company back at that time. But that's been a very successful venture. We've seen tremendous success with Snapdragon driving digital cockpits. We are now at up to 20 automakers who've designed us in. And, for us, the car has really become this platform, this canvas where every automaker is looking to differentiate the experience that they want to bring to their customers, what it means to the automaker themselves. And we've just been just having a tremendous time in this entire transformation that the auto industry is going through.
Yeah, sometimes I even forget kind of where Qualcomm started and what it was doing in transportation. I appreciate the reminder there. And Qualcomm has had some pretty big commercial success. It's funny, every time I turn around at one of your big forums, you talk about Designwin pipeline with numbers that are hard to imagine. How is that going these days? Is it still growing? I don't know if you can even talk about that, but I'm going to ask it.
It is growing. I think we've been growing at a steady clip. And really, what's going on, Pat, is not really very difficult to decipher, right? The car is transforming technologically every year. The car is getting more complex. Every car is getting connected. Every automaker wants to be able to bring a lot of new experiences that are consumer facing, add safety applications, connectivity. Also, what is happening is there is more content that is going into the vehicle in terms of displays, in terms of more software, and that is increasing the silicon value that is going into the vehicle. So what we track mostly is, how do we build platforms for the vehicle? We don't really think about the car as a destination for our silicon or our semiconductors.
Yeah.
It's more a platform approach. How do we bring a lot of software that goes along with our modules that we supply into vehicles? And every year you are seeing this. I think all of us are seeing this play out in front of us as consumers. There is just more technology, and we are part of that technology equation. And so that's what's driving the pipeline size.
It is incredible watching automotive as the percentage of the bill of materials goes up, and it is really about electronics, and either for safety or entertainment, something like that. But that also is attracting a lot of different companies. And I'm curious, at its most basic level, how do you differentiate yourself from players like NXP, NVIDIA, and Intel?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We have come at the market from a couple of different vantage points. Our history when it comes to wireless communications goes back a long way. So we consider ourselves a leader in that space because we are a communications leader, and it makes sense for us to be reinventing the needs of communication technologies and standards for the vehicle. And that goes back a long way. But Qualcomm is also a systems company. We don't look at ourselves as a semiconductor company. So we build a lot of IP across a variety of different technology areas, from CPUs to AI to GPUs and DSPs. And because of our roots in smartphone technology and the smartphone business, we know how to move very quickly when it comes to process node. We know how to build low power devices. We deal with a very large scale of business in terms of the number of customers we have to support globally, the amount of complexity in our silicon attach, and all of that has allowed us to be able to bring really a couple of differentiators to the auto industry. We can move fast. So, for example, we introduced our 7-nanometer parts to the auto industry in 2018. We have put them in cars this year. Within 2 years, you are seeing technology that would typically have taken 4 or 5 years move very quickly. We bring partnerships with companies like Google and companies like QNX together. So an RTOS company that is very focused on automotive software and a fast-moving consumer-focused software business, how do you go marry those two together? We've been able to go bring those types of partnerships together. And the list goes on and on. So I think an automaker, the one thing that an automaker needs today is to be able to move much faster than they traditionally have. And they want to be able to rely on partners that are able to bring a lot of technology, a lot of ecosystem relationships, and a lot of automotive-focused execution together. I think those are the things that have made us successful. That's what we bet on as we look ahead. And, when I compare ourselves to traditional companies that have been in the automotive industry for a long time or other competitors, I really think that automotive is a very different kind of space if I compare it to smartphone, because the car is much more complex. There is room for a lot of different technologies and partners to coexist. We compete with a number of companies that we also, in some cases, partner with. So, I think we have a recipe, we have a differentiation, and I think so far it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, it has worked out quite well, particularly when I look at the with that design win pipeline. And is it very similar to what got you into the show? Is that what customers should continue to choose from you? Is it, or is there a different element looking into the future?
Yeah. I think you've seen us at CES for a number of years, and one thing that we try to do, and we will do even this next time in 21 in the virtual CES, is to really be able to define what the experience needs to look like inside the vehicle. I think we are starting to see a significant transition towards what we call zonal compute in the car, where the car
Interesting.
starts to define zones for how the experience is going to exist going forward. So there can be a driver zone, there is a passenger zone, there is a rear seat entertainment zone, there is of course, the connectivity in the safety zone. And what we are seeing is the definition of SOCs, application processors, that are multiple personality. So the same SOC has the ability to be able to play different roles, but there is a commonality in hardware. There is a commonality in the underlying software support that is needed. And we are looking at this transition as allowing us the ability to be able to integrate a lot of functionality onto the same SOCs. So we expect a lot of integration of functions. We see safety becoming very important as an underlying ingredient in the silicon that we define. So that is going into our overall planning. And I think, like you said earlier, technology is what is redefining the vehicle. It's a very different, very complex surface, and so we continuously strive to evolve our roadmap to keep up with that.
Congrats on your success. Let's go a little bit broader here, and I'd like to talk a little bit more, get your visionary take on this. Where do you see cars are going to be in 10 years from now, related to safety and infotainment, and how do you see your role in this evolving?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think we are starting to see a lot of what I believe is going to happen over the next 10 years already. I think there is a tremendous amount of innovation going on in the market across various automakers, various other players in the industry. I think where I would start is the first thing is that the business model of car ownership is going to change. I think this situation that we are in right now within the pandemic, I think, is a good example of how you do need to have a variety of different business models. And I think what that will do is it will change how automakers define what is infotainment, what is connectivity, who's paying for it, what is the value of the asset over a period of time. So that, I think, is going to is bringing already, I should say, new innovation, new business models to come together. I think as far as infotainment itself goes, the ability to be able to consume an experience in the car that is similar to what you have in your living room, or that is similar to what you see on a tablet or a phone, I think that time has come. You are starting to see a number of different services. We work with Google on gas. That is an area that is starting to take hold. We work with a variety of other ecosystems in China, in Europe, that are more traditional. And there are many other large players that are looking to also participate in the automotive space. So we do see infotainment and connectivity as starting to look quite similar to how they look in other parts of our life today, within the home, within the phone. And that will be a continuous evolution. I think in the safety space, we are starting to see the mandate for a variety of different features as far as NCAP goes, or just basic safety with cameras and radar. I think all of that technology is going to continue to evolve. Better resolution in cameras, better quality, higher range radars. And then that path is moving up as well as you start to move from safety features to convenience features. The equation is going to be, the more sensors and compute you add to the vehicle, the safer the vehicle becomes. And that has to work at scale. So there are many different ways to solve the problem, architecturally, from a software perspective, from algorithm. I think all of that is underway right now. I think everybody has a slightly different approach to solving the problem. But in 10 years, I think, fundamentally, cars are going to, in my mind, become much more safe. The technology will be pervasive, and you will have a very different experience model in the car than what we see today. And I think most automakers will have evolved to new business models in terms of how they actually exist within the car business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everybody has a joint belief finally on what the future is going to look like. Some people got there a lot later than others. right? What you're looking at is a software-defined piece of electronics that operates more like your smartphone. Now, it's a smartphone that people want to last for 10 years. That's a big difference. But I think, Wall Street's usually not the best guide of value, but I think we've seen where Wall Street puts all of its value, and it's on next generation futuristic cars with heavy-duty telematics or advanced cockpits. I'd like to talk a little bit about COVID right now. The auto industry definitely was impacted by it. Lines were shut down. What role do you think that the technology industry is going to play in the automotive space and self-driving cars? What can Qualcomm offer here?
So, we have been investing in the ADAS space over the last 4 to 5 years. We've invested in developing our own highway autopilot stack. We introduced the Snapdragon Ride portfolio at CES, and we are working with a few customers globally in terms of deploying self-driving vehicles in the 2022-2023 timeframe. Like I said, Pat, I think this entire space is going to go through a significant amount of evolution over the next 10 years, because I think we are starting to see the very early days of how software and sensors and next generation high-end semiconductors reinvent the vehicle. And I think we are in the very early stages of that transition. So our roadmap is very much tied to making sure that we are investing in the highest performance SoCs with the artificial intelligence, with the differentiated safety software that is required to be able to go redefine the vehicle from an ADAS perspective. We have announced partnerships recently. We announced a partnership with Veoneer on the vision perception and drive policy stack. So we believe that the solutions that you will start to see over the next 5 to 10 years are going to come together through partnerships across a variety of players in the ecosystem. And we want to be able to make sure that we build platforms that are open, where we are able to host the best of breed hardware and software partnerships. And really, I think the pace at which new technology will get introduced is going to become much faster. We see every automaker experimenting across a variety of different areas, from premium to entry to self-driving or robotaxi type solutions, or being able to experiment with different business models or different experience models. And I think what that is doing is it is getting a lot of different options in front of automakers in terms of what are the product choices that they have available to offer to their consumers. And making sure that you are part of that conversation, in my mind, is a really important aspect right now. So that's what we are focused on. Our 4 major focus areas are telematics and C-V2X, infotainment in the digital cockpit, ADAS and autonomous driving, and finally car to cloud, which is making sure that we are able to stay connected to the expertise and experience we bring to the vehicle over the life of the vehicle.
That's good background. Appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done with Veoneer, as much as you can talk, maybe a little bit, drill down on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we are seeing in terms of the ADAS and the autonomous driving space in terms of the evolution is that there are maybe 3 different areas that require a lot of evolution. One is, how do you define a hardware architecture that is programmable, where you have the ability to be able to bring best of breed, best class software and algorithms. The partnership with Veoneer is around making sure that we have a vision perception stack and a drive policy stack that is married with our SoCs, so that we can provide options to automakers and tier ones who are looking to be able to have another way of being able to solve the camera perception challenges. The second piece that we've spent a lot of time on is to make sure that we have a scalable level 2 plus level 3 solution. So we introduced at CES, as part of Snapdragon Ride, our high performance SoCs and our accelerators that allow you to be able to get to as high as 720 tops in a specific configuration to really be able to drive the multi-sensor, multi-camera type solutions. And then being able to build these solutions with reference designs, with a variety of different algorithms and software partners is what allows us to be able to scale the solution to as many tier ones and OEMs as we can. So that's what we committed to doing at CES beginning of this year. The partnership with Veoneer is a continuation of that journey, and you will continue to see a variety of similar announcements from us over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think I'll be the first one to tell you I was super surprised when somebody offered me a ride in the Qualcomm 8 car at Las Vegas. I didn't even know that you were in this business, and boom, somebody asked me for a ride. I didn't know you were doing this, so I was super surprised. I thought you were all going to show me some cool in-cockpit electronics, something like that, and then we took a drive. I think people would really benefit to understand maybe how your ADAS and self-driving strategy is different from others. And I wonder if you could explain that.
Yeah, so I think there are a few different aspects where we think about this a bit differently. And I think the industry is kind of moving in that direction as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a transition towards zonal compute that is starting to happen in the car. And what that means is that automakers don't necessarily want to be able to build or build on purpose-built silicon for each domain. So we are going to start to, with our next generation transition in compute, build SoCs that will be able to take the personality using the right software for the specific domain that it is supposed to be used for. So for example, today you have SoCs that are able to have a variety of different heterogeneous compute solutions. You have ISPs, you have GPUs, you have DSPs, NSPs. These are functions that are homogeneous depending upon what specific application they're being used for. But we are designing our next generation platforms to be able to, where the same underlying hardware could take the personality of cockpit or could take the personality of ADAS, because they will all be safety capable. That allows automakers to be able to have a lot of flexibility when they are designing their car architecture, because you don't want to be able to get locked down to specific platforms and specific approaches. You want to be able to have a lot of flexibility that you can plan around with different types of software paths. That has created a lot of interest from a variety of different customers. Then, as I said earlier, when it comes to software, we believe that there will be a continuous evolution in terms of the type of software and algorithms that are running in the vehicle, because there will always be a need to be able to differentiate in that space. So we believe that our platforms have to be open and programmable. We will offer software in some areas, and in other areas we will partner with various entities, Veoneer being an example. And I think the third piece is scalability. You have to be able to have platforms that can scale from entry tier all the way to premium, because you can't really have scale in the automotive business unless you're able to address the sweet spot of the market. And I think the strategy we've had so far across telematics, across infotainment, seems to also be working in the ADAS space, in that once you have that scalability and that open platform, you really become a destination where automakers and tier ones want to be able to make a long-term investment.
Yeah, it's funny, as you talk about your strategy, particularly on the software side, I can think of other companies that's not their strategy. And then I think about the multi-tier approach. I personally don't think any player is going to be a long-term player without having kind of good, better, best, and even beyond that, maybe 4 or 5 different levels that an automaker can scale and have a very similar socket and then a software stack that can leverage those. I know a lot of people love to talk about ADAS and self-driving, but quite frankly, what people can appreciate today is IVI and cockpit. And I know that's where a lot of that Qualcomm backlog is right now. But I'm curious. Aside from the financials, how are you doing with those automakers? Can you talk a little bit about that and your uniqueness in this area? I'm pretty certain that I've sat in a few cockpits where you're in there.
So, we were very fortunate in that when we kicked off our engagement in infotainment, we partnered with Audi, and we spent couple of years really learning how car electronics work, because it wasn't something that Qualcomm naturally had any history in. And that allowed us to be able to get the quality experience that you need to be able to have in the car, focus on quality, focus on reliability, the DPPM requirements that you have to meet, and more importantly, the software requirements that you have to be able to meet, because the software in the car is very different from really any other industry. And Pat, what we have seen over the last 5-6 years, we are now designed at, like I said earlier, 20 different automakers. We are seeing a number of automakers transform into software companies. They have hundreds of people that are on their own staff. They follow best-in-class software development methodology. They work with a variety of different hardware and software providers. They adopt agile development in terms of how they are working. And in many cases, we are actually embedded with automakers in terms of developing their next generation cockpit. So this is something that was unheard of 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We have people that are working globally. I mean, we have people in China, in Korea, in India, in Silicon Valley, in Germany, co-located with automaker engineers to be able to go deliver to these very aggressive timelines. So that kind of tells you that not only has the industry started to transform, but the approach in terms of how car software is being developed is changing very rapidly. We are seeing the same kind of transition starting to happen at many tier ones, where they're realizing that the cockpit is not the same infotainment system as it used to be 4 or 5 years ago. So they've made investments in Silicon Valley. They have built large software teams, and really, what is being realized, what's being recognized, is that these are very complex systems. You need to have a dozen, 2 dozen companies working together over multiple years to be able to deliver a production system. Very complex to go do, and therefore you need the scale. And I think our strategy, the reason it's worked well, is we decided early on that we had to win this business at scale. It wouldn't make any business financially or really for the ecosystem if we didn't actually build a roadmap that was scalable, invest in software very broadly, focused on the needs of automakers in every ecosystem and every part of the world that they were focused on, and then really commit to the strategy by co-locating our human capital where it needed to be co-located.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about the co-location and engineers working with customers, and what I think a lot of people don't understand is that in automotive industry, that didn't happen a lot before. It happens a lot in other tech, smartphones. I know for a fact Qualcomm is embedded in smartphone manufacturers, carriers, trying to decrease time to market, working on the quality, all that good stuff. But it really feels like to me that the auto industry is finally transforming. I think it took a rabbit for that to happen, and a lot of the value of other companies to leave their company and go to another company. But I am glad in the position that we're in. We've talked IVI, we've talked ADAS. What I'd like to talk to is what everybody knows that Qualcomm is the leader in, and that's automotive connectivity, telematics, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and you've been recently paving the way for C-V2X and 5G. And you also announced what's called Car to Cloud earlier this year. Where's Qualcomm at now with the connected vehicle technologies?
Yeah. Let me start with telematics. So I think every car maker that we work with is designing a connected car. There are no automakers that are not putting a modem in. So that business is obviously going well. Now, I think it is well known we have a very large smartphone business, which has been, fortified by investments in the RF front-end space. We have obviously been investing in modem technology for a long time. So our business is expanding in that we go all the way from modem to antenna in terms of trying to solve the problem. As 5G is upon us, we are starting to see automakers make that transition. I think it's going to happen at different points in time in different geographies, but that transition has started as early as next year. A few things are different about the car than they typically have been. So previously we used to do a lot of reuse of technology. What has now started to happen is as modems go into cars across the board, we are, for example, seeing requirements like dual SIM, dual active, which means there actually need to be two concurrent connections in the vehicle, one for the car, the other for the driver or the passenger. Adds a lot of complexity because now you are essentially doubling the level of complexity that the modem has to be able to support. Number of luxury automakers are asking for these features, and we will see these trickle down to really every automaker because of what I said earlier. The business model is changing. The car has to be connected to whatever the car has to be connected to, regardless of the use model.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Can you talk to the audience? What does the one SIM do? And then what does the other SIM do?
So the first SIM is designed for really managing the software of the vehicle, managing diagnostics, over-the-air updates. Really think of it as the IT organization managing your laptop versus you as a user. These are two completely separate functions. Each has its own life cycle. Each has its own requirements. And as you bring in new business models, clearly there is a separation between what the car data is versus what the user data is. And we see this transition starting to happen. We're going to start to deploy DSDA in the 22 timeframe, and we will start to see this get deployed widely across the auto industry. Now, what makes this very interesting and very complex, Pat, is when we put a modem inside a car, it is performing the functions of the basic wireless connection. We also have GPS and location capability inside that same modem. We also support emergency calling type features off of that modem. We support capability in the modem to have a Wi-Fi hotspot to power, because you want Wi-Fi co-located to where 4G and 5G are. So this is becoming a very complex endpoint within the vehicle. And what we added to this overall platform over the last 3-4 years was V2X. Now, V2X has been talked about in the auto industry for over a dozen years, right? DSRC has been around for quite some time. And our rationale, because we have the technology on both sides, we have DSRC radios available as well. But our rationale in terms of why we selected cellular V2X was we believe that you need an ecosystem like 3GPP. You need something that is globally deployable. You need the economies of scale for the technology to be able to scale up like 4G and 5G have scaled up. And the bet that we made was we will integrate V2X into our modems. That will bring down the cost of ownership, and it becomes an option for the automaker. So should they choose to turn it on, they can. And if it remains dormant, it is not going to add a lot of cost to the overall solution. And that's paid off. In China has decided to go down the CV2X path. We are starting to see automakers deploy this at scale next year. We are obviously here in the US, the FCC has recommended that 20 megahertz be set aside in the 5.9 band for CV2X. Ford has committed to deployment of CV2X, and we are waiting for other automakers to follow suit. So these are complex technologies because it is a safety of life technology. It has an infrastructure element to it. We don't expect that these are going to be deployed overnight. But what we are very gratified to see is that the strategy that we laid out, the investments that we made in the ecosystems, the standards bodies, the development itself, has paid off in that every automaker that you see today is future-proofing their designs for the technology. And as regulators catch up and as geographies start to go make those choices, we will be ready much sooner than what has been typical in the auto industry.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see that you're all in on CV to X. That was my recommendation for the auto industry. So maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but it seems to be the right technology. And I think these next generation technologies, when you look at 5G and the latency and the importance of things like that, it seems to make just a whole lot of sense. Let's move to car to cloud. Maybe we can talk a little bit about, you could talk about what it is. And it kind of looks like something that, or it can help automakers compete with Tesla.
Yeah, so car to cloud. I mean, so like the name suggests. So for us, what became very obvious some time ago was that we can't really be deploying such complex technology and software in cars, and then not have the ability to be able to keep it updated, keep it secure, make sure that there are opportunities that will exist over the life cycle of the vehicle that we can go assist with. So we introduced Car to Cloud at CES, and since then we've had a lot of excellent conversations with automakers, with tier ones, but also with a number of cloud partners. Car to Cloud at its most basic level is about being able to make sure that you offer automakers the flexibility of being able to update, add to, evolve the capabilities of the hardware and the software that they are procuring from us over the life of the vehicle. So many examples. You want to be able to standardize on a certain platform capability, and not every automaker or not every vehicle line within that automaker wants to be able to purchase the same level of capability on day one. Well, we can make it such that you can add capability over the life of the vehicle. Or if there is a business model that applies in one tier of vehicle that doesn't apply in the other, can you create that flexibility? Or if there is a network technology that is getting introduced in a geography later than in the other, could you make those changes over the air? So we call this soft SKU. We have created SKUs for our platforms that are updatable over the air, and we make it such that it makes it straightforward and easy for the automaker to be able to look at their investments over a much longer period of time. As you start to think about that, what it really comes down to is there is a device management aspect to the solution. So you're managing it as a device, whether it's a SIM card or the car itself. And there is a service management aspect to the solution. So the services could be applications, content, other types of very specific solutions that automakers are building. So we are building a solution that allows us to be able to address both pieces. Device management, we are doing ourselves with some partners. Service management, we will work with other established players in. And the combination of the two allows you to be able to take infotainment and connectivity to create a new digital cabin experience, something that evolves over the life of the vehicle for the business model you're trying to promote. And so that's kind of what Car to Cloud is.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think the automakers do need help with Tesla and big tech companies like Qualcomm to help them out. Again, very fascinating how closely the modern car looks like a smartphone. I think it's fascinating to me. So Nakul, you've been a great guest, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure this is going to be a really popular video, but one thing I'd like to do is give you the last word here. Do you have anything to share with the audience to maybe wrap it up? The mic is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much, Pat. I think all I would end with is, I think I've heard the term, the car is very much like a smartphone and a smartphone on wheels. And I actually think that the auto industry is going to be a fairly fascinating place over the next 10 years, because I don't think there is a platform quite like the car where you have to care about the life cycle, the safety requirements, the global nature of the deployment, it being part of a transportation network, it being in a very heavily regulated industry, the need to be able to change the business model, the consumption of software and applications, autonomous driving. I think there is so much going on in this space. One thing we consider ourselves very fortunate is that we are sitting on a very large portfolio of technology assets. We have a very open partnership model. We work globally across a variety of different markets and geographies. And I think the only way to really be successful in this space is to partner, partner, partner. And I think that has been our motto. Obviously, you have to invest in the portfolio that you're building. So we really looking forward to the next decade in terms of a lot of success in the automotive space. Thank you again, Pat, for your time.
Yes, and thank you for coming on the show. And I hope if we can ever get back to CES or Mobile World Congress or the Detroit Auto Show, you can surprise me once again with, hey, step in here and check out what we've done the last year. But with that, thank you so much. And if you like what you heard, press that subscribe button. But until next time, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy signing out. Have a good one.